Ready?
Interesting guys you got here.
He's ready.
Hey, he's
Try to be
ready.
helpful.
Recording in progress.
All right, yes, let's get ready. Good evening, Dayton, town of Dayton, welcome to the regular meeting on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Just by way of reminder, this is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast. To confirm the next meeting for October 4th, same time. And off to the races we go, opening with a public hearing. Is there anything additional that I need to read? Is that why you gave me these?
That's just helpful
Good
information.
guide, all right. All right, public hearing number 1, special permit application for James Logan, 0 Prospect Street, map 4, lot 370, retreat lot. Mr. Logan, are you present?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Greg Logan. I reside at 2187 Pleasant Street. This is my son, James Logan. He's in the process of building a house on 0 Prospect Street. We're going for the retreat lot with the requirements of the retreat lot deal. That's where we're at. And I believe you have everything you guys have gotten from Jason Youngcliffe from Outback Engineering. I know we've submitted to Kerry to some PDFs with some questions in regards to upland. We did determine what we had for the upland was 2.25 acres. I'm sorry, 2.44. So we're here to entertain any kind of questions or concerns you might have with the property. I know James here is pretty more knowledgeable about it, but I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Okay. All right, well, gentlemen, before I ask any questions, you saw my input because I wasn't initially going to be here, but does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, if we could make a motion to open
Open.
the public hearing and then read the public
Open the
notice
item.
into
It's
record.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why I've been
That
given a
would be
flow
great.
chart.
Thank you.
It's right here. Somebody make a motion to open the
I'll
public
make that motion.
hearing.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so,
Public notice, read
we have to read the public notice as well.
to record.
It's a record. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're here. This is wonderful. Keep me out of jail. Legal notice, Dayton Planning Board, September 20th, 2023 at 7 PM. Notice is hereby given that Dayton Planning Board will conduct a public hearing on the special permit application by James Logan for approval of the creation of 1 retreat lot located at 0 Prospect Street, being shown as Assessor's Map 4, Lot 37, pursuant to Sections 5090 and 5300 of the Town of Dayton zoning bylaws. Copies of the application and plan may be viewed by the Planning Board office, in the Planning Board office during normal business hours, or requested by email, Kerry Easterday K Easterday at dayton-mass.gov. Any person wishing to be heard on the above application should appear at the time and place designated for the public hearing. Dayton Planning Board, Jeff Cavallo, Chairman. All right, so now we're ready, I think. Excellent. So, gentlemen, back to you. Any questions of the applicant before we open it to the public?
I'm not sure it's really relevant to our decision-making, but do we have to read the conservation's letter into record, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do, yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'll let you guys go first, and I can read that into record. Yeah. No questions? Woody?
No, I have no questions.
Chris?
None here.
I think this is as straightforward as it gets. I wish they were all this easy. And the way I see it is, you need a motion?
No, we gotta go to public input. I need to read it.
There you go.
All right, so, nothing from the board members, so I just want to say, I echo what they're saying as well. Very straightforward, the only clarification I asked for was, you do have the required acreage, you have the required frontage. It wasn't clear to me what your upland was.
Sure.
That information was provided, so you've met all our requirements and our concerns. But there is a email from Lisa Caledonia, which I'm gonna read in the record, Hi, Carrie, the Conservation Commission is in receipt of this application and plan. It's important to note, the Conservation Commission recently approved the project on 8/1/2023. However, the plan information we approved differs from what was received by the planning board. Our orders of conditions approve the site plan off Prospect Street in Dayton, Massachusetts, stamped by Jason Youngquist with final revision date of 7/24/2023. The scale is 1 inch equals 30 feet. It differs because the Conservation Commission only approved the wetland edge in the vicinity of the proposed project. We did not confirm the accuracy of the entire wetland edge. The approved plan depicts a limit of wetland line approval, and I have attached this for your reference. Please let me know if you have any questions. I didn't have any questions. Is she expecting some kind of follow-up with the?
No, she just wanted to make us aware that,
There was 2 plans. And we submitted the other plan that was with Conservation's plan.
Right. and that's
We
provided.
weren't aware it was separate, but that's pretty much what that was about. Because we've already recorded the original plan with the Registry of Deeds
Okay.
from Conservation.
Excellent, okay, thank you. Yeah, and we have the separate set of plans also in the submission that Lisa provided, that was given to her during that. Since I'm here, I've also got a email from Jim Aguirre, building commissioner, and the building department does not have any concerns with, and for the purposes here, we're talking about 0 Prospect Street. So nothing further from Mr. Aguirre. So everybody that has to speak on this particular topic has. At this point, open out to public comment. So, gentlemen, you're welcome to remain standing or seated, whichever. Is anybody here this evening who would like to speak on this topic? Ask you to please step to the microphone. State your name, address. All right, thank you.
Prospect Street, no,
Prospect Street. Anybody on Zoom on this topic?
it's just us.
Okay, it's just us, just us mice. All right, so, gentlemen, if there's no further questions, we can make a motion on this topic.
Make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Mo and seconded. Any discussion before we take it to a vote? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions?
Thank you,
Carry it.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Take it easy, neighbor.
We have nothing to sign, Carrie?
Not right now, because we gotta write a
At this time.
decision.
All right, we we have to close that public hearing, or is it a continuation?
Yes, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Please make a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Guess what we get to do again. Somebody please make a motion. This is also a public hearing, the second item as well.
Make a motion to open the public hearing for Wayland City Solar, 2204 Maple Swamp Road, map 1, lot 4.
All right, we got a
Small scale residential solar.
I'll second that.
motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So, need to read legal notice into record. Yes? Legal notice, Dayton Planning Board, on September 20th, 2023, at 7 PM. Notice is hereby given the Dayton Planning Board will conduct a public hearing on the special permit application and site plan review by Wayland City Solar to install a 14,400 kilowatt, small-scale ground-mounted solar PV system and a 3-foot retaining wall along the driveway edge for property located at 2204 Maple Swamp Road, being shown as Assessor's Map 1, Lot 4, pursuant to sections 4600, 5300, and 5400 of the Town of Dayton zoning bylaws. Copies of the application and plan may be viewed in the Planning Board office during normal business hours or by contacting Carrie by email. Any person wishing to be heard on the above application should appear at the time and place designated for the public hearing. Dayton Planning Board, Jeff Cavallo, Chairman. All right, sir,
Good evening.
evening, name and,
Kai Hadley. I work with Wayland City Solar. I'm here on behalf of David Prairie at 2204 Maple Swamp Road. You have proposed a 30-panel ground mount system. We went for conservation last month for a RDA, no, not applicable. Presenting to you guys.
okay. All right, so I looked through here, and typical concerns are distances from other structures, and you're outside of the 100-foot. And nothing, let me see, I did a write-up on this, so I'm not gonna wing it, I'm just gonna get it. Using the power optimizers, good. So I reviewed it, and no concerns with the application. And you meet all the setback requirements by the bylaws. And, nothing there, and there were other inputs, and I'll swing it to you guys here, and just read these here. You did get input from the fire chief, and he said on August 23rd, they had no issues with the solar array as shown on the plan set. So the chief chimed in agreement. And also, I thought there was also, let me look here, Sergeant George Nichols also, no issues as well. So you had the police chief, fire chief chimed in. I think you probably also, yeah, same letter from Jim Aguirre. I'm gonna just get to it. I like how Jim consolidated.
Yeah,
One email, 3 public hearings.
Yep.
Excellent. Should've just printed that one email so I can read it over and over again. Okay, here it is, excellent. Jim Aguirre, again, he's the building commissioner, and on September 20th, he said, afternoon, the building department does not have any questions or concerns with the project at 2204 Maple Swamp Road. So, he was also in concurrence, nothing was jumping out at him, so. Gentlemen, same question. You've got the package there, and do you have any concerns or questions for the applicant?
Here, no.
It's more than 100 feet from the next dwelling, right?
Yes.
That was my only concern.
Okay. Members of the audience, at this point, if there's anybody here who would like to provide any public input for the project at 2204 Maple Swamp Road, please do at this time. Not here for that.
I couldn't hear what you said, about what George Nichols and the fire chief said. I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, I apologize. For these projects, we typically will ask the police chief and the fire chief if they have any concerns on the project. And in both cases, they've reviewed the project and had no concerns.
And there's no, sorry, again, I'm Gail Woodward, I live at 2035 Maple Street.
Yes, ma'am.
I just, there's no concern with like groundwater or interfering with any conservation land or anything like that?
As far as we know, nothing, no. It's not applicable here, right? It's not part of the application.
and I believe you did go before.
Yeah, we went through conservation actually last month, and so they did a request for determination of applicability, and they said no. So essentially, there are no concerns from conservation.
Yeah, they're required to
I
present.
got that right.
Yeah, they're required to present to the Conservation Commission, and they have, and it was effectively not applicable, no concerns and no findings. Anything else, ma'am? Sir, okay.
I actually have a comment. We have this thing that we cannot, these arrays cannot be seen from the road.
Yeah, not for personal, Joe. It's only commercial.
Only on large scale. Okay, that's all that I'm gonna clarify that. I'm good.
All right, board members, any further comment? Deliberate. All right, somebody would like to make a motion on this? Ma'am?
Sorry, one moment.
Yes.
So, did you wanna let them know?
Yes,
Because I did
so-
not get a chance to talk to the chairman before.
That was it. That I don't have every signature on this, so if I need to continue to the next hearing, I can do so.
What is
That's-
that form?
So that is the receipt of the distribution of the application to the various other departments that's
Understood.
required within 3 business working days.
Mhm.
So there's 2 options. You can either continue the matter so that he can properly notify the other departments. I will note that on September 7th, I also noted the departments through an email with a copy of the application to them requesting any public input that they, not public input, departmental input on the matter. So they have been notified from the planning board's office. So I will leave that up to the board on how you want to handle that matter.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the application here, it looked like everything was signed, there was an order. So what is that?
So that's part
the
of the
routing-
application package.
that's the routing
Once
sheet.
we determine that that the planning board has received the application incomplete, or has received a complete application package,
Got it.
the applicant is required to distribute the application and a copy of the plans to the various other departments
so it's-
within 3 business working days.
Right, so this is like an interdepartmental routing sheet.
Correct.
Got it, we don't normally see this, okay.
I will note that they have been notified, because I did email them on, again, September 7th. I always do that as a follow-up to make sure that they're aware that, I actually do it to notify them that we've actually scheduled a public hearing, when
Yep.
the specific date is, and to request any input that they may feel is worthy. So they've officially received a copy of it, we just don't have that formal sign-off sheet from them.
But what's left, you got water department?
Board of Health, so Conservation,
Conservation, which they had a public hearing last month on the matter, and she responded to it, which was actually a response to my email.
Okay, so she just hasn't signed the form.
Correct.
Okay, so, I mean,
Those 2 signatures?
Water District, Assessor, and Commissioner, which was in the email.
yeah.
And Board of Health, Conservation, Water District, and Assessor.
I mean, it can be a conditional approval.
I mean, is it a good enough reason to have them come back?
Well, I mean, if for some reason they decide not to sign it, he's gotta come back to us anyway.
Yeah.
But if they sign it, then he doesn't have to come back to us.
Yeah, once we get these signatures,
So if we
You're
can
good
have a
to go.
conditional approval,
send them come
I
back.
don't know how you guys feel
Tomorrow.
about that, but I'm not concerned
good
because
with it.
because Jim's good, Lisa's good,
Oh,
and it's just
nothing
everybody else.
against you,
Oh, no, I understand. I had my
Okay.
hit moment this morning.
Sorry, can I just say,
I'm good.
Yes, ma'am.
is the town ever gonna like put a limitation squash on some of these like solar panel projects? I mean, okay, obviously here that I'm not a big in favor of all these solar panels.
I haven't heard that, ma'am.
Join the club.
Well, I'm just saying, I feel like down the road, there's probably some ramification that we're not aware of right now for all these solar panels, how we're gonna get rid of them all, that maybe they are gonna affect the groundwater, whatever. So I'm just, and I personally feel that they're an eyesore, especially Tremont Street, what's happening on that property, which I know has already gone through, we came to that meeting and stuff.
Right.
I'm just asking, you probably don't know, it, like. in the future,
I can answer that question.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked. You have an opportunity next month to come to a public hearing for our revision of our solar bylaw.
Okay, when is that?
October 4th,
October 4th.
That's the October 4th meeting?
7 PM.
So we're going through another revision. As far as limiting it from a town perspective, that's not part of it. But if you would like a copy of where we're at with that bylaw and the changes that we've made, I find it interesting reading. It's section 5400. And I'm sure we can make a copy of that available to you if you'd like to read through it and come prepared with questions and concerns and, mark it up, bring it in. That's what we want. We want people in town to look at it and come with their inputs.
I guess I just wanna feel more comfortable with all this solar panel that's happening, it's like,
Okay.
I'll answer a few more questions points that you brought up too, ma'am, about the visibility on Tremont Street especially. It's gonna be blocked. They're gonna build a giant fence, the biggest fence you've ever seen, on a 3-foot-high berm, and I think it's gonna be a 11 or 12-foot-high fence, so you will not see it when you drive by. And as far as decommissioning, when they at the end of their 20-year lease, they have to provide a bond up front before the project ever starts. Enough money is set aside to decommission that and take the whole thing away in case they don't do it. You know, like if they just close shop and leave, they have money in a bond to the town of Dayton that we have enough money to clean the site up.
Okay. So if they just leave, the town of Dayton would be responsible for taking?
If they just upped and left, yeah, we have a bond that would cover enough money for the cleanup.
Okay.
And I don't know how the formula they use, because, you see prices going up every day. I don't know what it's gonna look like in 20 years. But I don't like looking at them either, I'll be honest with you. So,
Yeah, I don't know if that gigantic fence is gonna be, I mean, you won't see the.
Wait till you see the fence.
Is it gonna be beautiful?
it's gonna look like Jurassic Park. Okay,
The Great Wall of Dayton.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
You're
welcome.
Nancy?
Nancy Goulart, Board of Assessors, and Chairman of the Stormwater Committee. What's the role of the Board of Assessors? Because we had a meeting today, I'm not aware of that at all. And if we were supposed to do something, we could have done it today. Our next meeting is in 3 weeks, so what's the role of the Board of Assessors? Other than the fact, does it change the classification of the property, like commercial operations do? Does anybody know?
I don't think so. No.
I've never had a solar farm
checking a box at this
for a private property come before us, so.
It could be a property evaluation thing.
We've,
Yeah.
if I had to
we've
guess.
done others.
I know we've got them in town, I see them everywhere on roofs,
No, no, no,
around
I mean,
When I put in Central Air, my taxes went up. Right, so if they're putting
But
in
it's not
solar,
solar, my question really was, what's the role of the assessors, other than
I
if we
think it's
get notified
Property
that,
evaluation and reassessing of taxes.
all right, so it's
I'm
not.
guessing.
Yeah, that makes sense, but it's not an approval thing, as far as.
Well,
which-
it requires a signature on the routing sheet.
Okay, all right. So, I don't know if it would be the chairman, if it would be a vote of the board and then the chairman would sign, I'm not really sure, but anyhow,
I'm not sure what the role would be if they get approved and they have their solar, the ground mount, because it's a ground mounted solar on their residential property. But under our zoning bylaws, it just says we're required to notify the assessor's office of all special permits and site plan reviews that come in.
so it may be just for tax purposes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is a comment relative to what Ms. Woodward said. You singled out Tremont Street. That's going to be our first agricultural solar farm. The reason it's so high is they're gonna farm underneath it.
I did hear that.
And, as Mr. Hood said, solar farms are required to post, a number of bonds, not only, decommissioning, stormwater maintenance bonds, and there's a couple that we have, I'll call them landscaping bonds. And the other thing you gotta keep in mind is, so far, most of our solar farms have had pilot agreements. If they leave town, they're gonna continue to pay taxes on that at the commercial rate, as long as there's something on that property. So there are a number of, I'll call them safeguards, that the town has relative to not only cleaning up the mess, but also in anticipation of collecting taxes into a period of time ahead. So it's just not, they disappeared last night and we're left with a mess. So there are a number of conditions that involve solar farms. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Goulart.
Well,
Anything further on this topic? All right, gentlemen, if there's no other questions. I think it's fair to the applicant here to approve this based on, with conditions that the routing sheet is filled out. So somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
I'll second, oh, okay, whatever.
2 seconds. There's a race in second. Motion made and seconded. Any questions before we take it to vote? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Nothing heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, at this time, I'd like to make somebody please make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to close.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Excellent. And rinse and repeat. Somebody please make a motion to open the public hearing for the special permit application plan review for Grasshopper Energy Corporation, 0 Brook Street.
So,
Motion made, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Excellent.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Sir?
Public
Where is
notice.
yours? Oh, thank you. Thank you for the bump. It's not here. I can't, it's not my fault. Legal notice, Dayton Planning Board, it's to the 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Notice is hereby given. The Town of Dayton Planning Board will conduct a public hearing on the modification of special permit and site plan review by GHTGA 03 LLC, Grasshopper Energy, to cut a total of 97 trees outside the approved limit of work and proposes a 30-foot buffer around the entire facility for property located at 0 Brook Street, being shown as Assessors Map 16, Lot 28, pursuant to Section 4600, 5300, and 5400 of the Town of Dayton zoning bylaws. Copies of the application and plan may be viewed in the Planning Board office during normal business hours or requested by email to Carrie Day. Any person wishing to be heard on the above application should appear at the time and application designated, time and place designated for the public hearing. Signed, Dayton Planning Board, Jeff Cavallo, Chairman. All right, now we are ready.
Good evening, Rich Tabazinski with Atlantic Design Engineers. We're the engineers for the project, basically dating back to 2018, I believe, when the project was approved and as a special permit. It has since been constructed. We're here before you as a major modification of the special permit that was approved back in 2018. The owner representative of the project, Ahmed Hafez, is here also from Grasshopper Energy. He's on the Zoom call if there's questions or anything that arise to that he could answer also. We've submitted a plan along with our application and a narrative explaining the situation and what's being proposed. And I'll go through it generally here, but basically, when the project was constructed, the owner had a survey done of some of the taller trees that are surrounding the property in certain areas, and have determined that there's some excessive shading impacts from those trees on the solar facility. And there were some pictures provided with the application form and narrative to show those impacts. So they're proposing to basically cut those trees down and replace a portion of them in the 30-foot buffer. But the plan itself shows a total of 97 trees that were identified in the field as causing some shading impacts. Those have been actually flagged in the field also. And so the total of 28 of those are within the 100-foot buffer zone to the Conservation Commission. We have filed with the Conservation Commission for an amended order of conditions. That hearing is tomorrow night, as a matter of fact. So we'll be talking to them about the trees that are specifically within the 100-foot buffer, their jurisdiction. We're here before you tonight to request a modification of the special permit to allow us to clear those trees identified on the plans that you have, the total of 97 trees that surround the property on the west side, southwest side, and on the east side. The methodology for cutting the trees, basically, we're not going in there and clear cutting those entire areas out. We'll be just cutting the trees at approximately 1 foot above grade, leaving the stumps in place, leaving understory, the soils intact. The trees and anything disturbed on this, during that process will be removed from the site. We're not leaving anything in place. There'll be, no soil disturbance in that area. So there might be some concerns with, particularly on the east side regarding the trees that are being removed along the east side, basically because there's a residence there. So what we've proposed is basically a 1-to-1 ratio of replacing the trees that are cut within the 30-foot property line buffer zone. That's shown in red on their drawing here. But basically, from your bylaw, there's a 30-foot buffer requirement. And any of the trees that are, the tall trees that are in those areas that are being cut will be replaced with, on a 1-to-1 basis. And I think the count is, I believe, 51 trees, I think, that are in that zone to the north and, to the east and to the west. There's a total of 51 trees that'll be basically replaced. And we had a local arborist come up with a list of trees that met your requirement for trees and understory that would meet your requirement from your bylaw, which means that those new trees that are planted will grow to at least 10 feet within 5 years of completion of the planting, and 75% of them will be evergreen species. So there's a list that was provided with in a letter form from an arborist providing the species that he proposed to use in those buffer areas. So we feel that's sufficient mitigation to basically not only replace the trees that are in that area in the 30-foot buffer, but also enhance the screening aspect, simply because the trees that are cut are rather large, so that the only screening that they are proposing right now is the tree trunk itself. And when we're planting the smaller, lower level trees, they'll provide more screening, we feel, to the abutter than actually what's there now.
What size of these trees, sir?
The trees that,
The ones they plan on planting?
they would grow to at least 10 feet within 5 years. So I would imagine they're planting at probably about a 6-foot, 7-foot height in that range.
We're gonna have to wait 5 years to see screening.
Perhaps to some degree, but again, he didn't specify an actual diameter or anything. But again, for them to be at least 10 feet within 5 years, they've got to be at least 6-7-foot trees right now. So when we plant, so that would be the proposal. Copy of his letters in the application. And so I guess I would just at this point leave it open for any questions that you might have regarding the application or the plan or the mitigation that's being proposed.
So would you say that this project construction is complete?
Yes, I mean, we haven't been involved in the actual construction aspect of the project. We came in at this late hour, so,
Okay.
yeah. But as far as I know, it's basically it's complete.
Okay, because the bylaw says within 5 years of construction, not 5 years of planting. So if we're done with construction, then the time starts when construction was complete.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my concerns is, it says specifically from the bylaw is 10 feet within 5 years of construction, not 5 years of planting.
Mm-hmm.
So if construction was done last year,
Mm-hmm.
you're down to 4 years. So now you're gonna plant 8-foot trees. So you're gonna take that into consideration. So I have a concern about those trees reaching their maturity and getting to 10 feet within 5 years of completion and construction. I think defining what completion and construction is by the letter of the bylaw needs to be properly determined. And it's not planting, it's construction. So if you're saying it's done, it's done. Was it done last year? Was it done 2 years ago? You've been working on it since 2018. I know it's not you personally, but
Right.
you're representing this company here. So my initial concern is Number one, making sure the trees are selected correctly, selected at the right height, so that they're at the right height, at the right time. And I have a lot of concerns about the abutting properties to the east. I know that conservation is heavily concerned about their trees, I'm gonna say, just kind of breaking things up between what we're looking at versus what they're looking at. And I know Lisa and the Conservation Commission are gonna do a really good job making sure that's done correctly. But for our perspective, I know I'm concerned about the residents there and making sure whatever's happening there, that they need to be shielded from what's going on. So what assurances do we have as representatives of the residents of Dayton that resident there isn't gonna be negatively impacted while you're making tree stumps from within 30 feet of their property line?
Well, again, there's trees that are being cut on the
Right.
west side.
Right, I'm talking about the
We
east
could
side.
we could, accept a condition that those trees that are being cut on this side be replaced on the east side, so that all the plantings on that east side buffer, because there's no residences or anything on the west side of the property, so there's no real reason for any particular screening up in that area. We could propose that instead of supplementing and replanting up here, that we propose that down in this particular area here, in close proximity to the residents.
We're not arguing about whether it should be more than one and one-to-one. I mean, I'm fine with what your plan was, and I counted, your original memo said 50 trees, I counted 51, so I'm glad you agree it's 51. And I think you should stick to your plan. My concern had more to do with, in the process of what your plan is, which you're gonna show up with what I'm assuming is gonna be some heavy machinery, a chainsaw, and some trucks. How was that resident and anybody, is anybody living here? I mean, there's a house, clearly there's a house right there. What assurances do we have from you and the applicant, that resident won't be negatively impacted while that's going on? You're cutting down, I don't know how many trees on that side. Let me check. 17 trees on the west side. 34 trees fall within the 30-foot buffer. Yep. 34 trees fall within the 30-foot buffer along the east side of the property. So there's 34 trees being affected there on the east side.
Right, in this area here, right?
Right, yeah, so somebody on camera wants to speak.
That's Ahmed from Grasshopper.
Yeah, Ahmed, please introduce yourself.
Yes, through the chair, this is Ahmed with Grasshopper. I wanted to respond to a concern here, sir, and like our engineer here, Rich, was saying, we propose to, instead of planting the trees on the west side, because this area is also next to the... Sorry?
It's like you guys aren't hearing my question. My question, let me ask my question again. You come up, if you came to my house and said, I'm gonna cut this tree 30 feet from, I'm gonna cut 34 trees on the back side of your property, right? I'm like, hey, great, I'm a private citizen, you're a private citizen. Well, in this case, this is not a private citizen project. This is a solar farm, right? So you're a company now. You're a company on the abutting property next to my house. And I'm concerned, because I live there and I have small children, what are you going to do to prevent chaos in my backyard while you're cutting down 34 trees? I don't want to hear that you're going to move trees from west to east, east to west, whatever. What are you going to do to assure that the resident that lives in that property is not going to be negatively impacted when you're cutting 34 trees next to their property line?
Okay, just to put everyone at ease here, the fire buffer that we cut, I think it was over 100 trees or something on the west side. This was done in a day and a half to cut them down, and then they were taken out and dragged. The whole thing was done in 3 days, so it's not like it's a long project. So this one, we expect the tree cutting can happen in 1 day, and then everything can be dragged out the second day. We'll take all the safety precautions to cordon off the area where we're working. We'll be, of course, in contact with the neighbor before and during the work is happening. We're using a local contractor to do that work. So it should be okay from a safety standpoint, like we've done all our work before. The second thing that we're proposing is that for the visual screening, which will be the main concern, of course, for the neighbor. We understand that, and this is why I started by talking about instead of planting the trees on the west side, because this area where we're cutting trees will add to the buffer that the fire department was very keen to have next to the batteries. Well, instead of replacing the trees there, we can plant those trees. We can propose to plant those trees on the east side as well, so we can improve like the current visual screening situation than it is now. Like whatever we will leave it as would be better than it is now. That's what we can guarantee.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so that's my tree concern. My second concern, I swear I'll let you guys have the floor next, is so you're not the first solar company to come to the town of Dayton, and you certainly won't be the last. But what we've learned over the years is a lot of times, even my 10 kilowatt array that I have on my roof, a lot of time was spent making sure when the solar company was getting ready to do this installation, LiDAR was done, site surveys were done, looking at current foliage in the area, shading, things like that. Shading studies are done. All these things are taken very seriously because the whole point of having solar panels is that the sun hits them and you make electricity. So if you're going to put solar panels in the shade of a bunch of trees, you want to know that. And you don't want to just know it for the next couple of years. You want to know for the life of the entire array, 20, 25 years down the road. I know they did it for my panels. I know that all these other places do this as well. And it's never a surprise. How is it that Grasshopper bought this land, cleared the trees that they had to clear and had approved, put a huge array in, and now is figuring out that when a tree gets between a panel and the sun, you get shade. That tree was there, that tree existed there, it's not new, okay? How is it that we're finding out now? Yes, you're well within your rights to ask this question. However, how do we get here? And my second part to that question is, and I know that it's an unanswerable question, but I'd love to know how you're just finding this out now. And the second part of that question is, why aren't you using a design that would prevent that from happening? Why aren't you using power optimizers or something equivalent to that would prevent, my array on my roof, it's slightly older technology. There's microinverters per panel, and the whole purpose of the microinverter, which is older technology, now power optimizers are used. The whole purpose of that is to prevent, if you have shading on one panel, that it doesn't draw down the rest of the array. So your whole argument about shade is causing, shading here is causing the entire array to be drawn down, well, that just sounds like bad electrical design. So number one, how do we get here? And number two, why is your design so finicky that shade on a small number of arrays on this monstrous array is drawing everything down and the sky's falling?
Okay, very, very fair and detailed question. The reason why we didn't clear the trees before starting even is that we inherited this project from the previous developer, and that's not an excuse. I'm just telling you how we got here. So we inherited the project that was developed by another developer, and the
You did not inherit it, sir, you bought it.
Yeah.
The difference. You knew what you were buying. You did not inherit it.
We inherited the design from another.
You did not inherit.
Okay. We bought the design and the project from another developer, and the limit of clearing was already approved, and the design, the limit of the panels was already approved. So we did our due diligence. We found out that there is some shading on the panels, and you can calculate the losses due to the shading, and we modeled the project according to that, and it was okay. Like we did our financial modeling and our technical modeling based on some shading on the panels, and we were okay to live with that. two things made the difference is that this project with the batteries, the way the BESS units are built and the architecture, I'm going to get a little bit technical here, I apologize for that. These are individual string inverters where they do what exactly the chairman was saying there, that a few panels can be shaded. There are MPPTs inside the inverters that optimize the production. But what happened here is because these BESS units, each 4 inverters, are connected together on one bus bar. And I apologize for getting technical, but the question was asked in a technical way, so I'm answering it in a technical way. So 4 inverters are connected together. And so what happens is one module, one panel is shaded. It doesn't only take down the string it's connected on, it takes down all 4 inverters, which means close to 90 strings connected to that one BESS unit.
Yeah, that's a bad electrical design.
That is the bad
Yeah,
electrical
so
design.
you just admitted you can fix it by changing your electrical design.
We bought the BESS units with the architecture inside connected in this way, yes. And this was our first battery and solar project. We found out this effect on other projects that we had energized. So instead of coming after we energize here, we thought we'd come and try to clear the trees before we energize the project.
So what's your plan as the years go along and these panels sustain 4 seasons of weather in New England and some of them start to get reduced efficiency and then draw down everything around them because you have no isolation between panels?
No, that is taken into our model, like the degradation of the panels is.
Right, but what I'm saying is the same argument holds. If you're concerned about some shade on some part of your overall array, drawing down all 4 of your inverters, that is the same process that will be in place as these decay. These don't decay linearly. If you have failure in any part of this array, or you're telling me a failure in any part of this array, which, anything can happen to your panels, they can just fail. They're solid state for the most part, but things can happen to them. So as individual panels start to lose efficiency over the years, what's gonna happen is, panel 75 is right next to panel 76, and they're both getting the exact same amount of sunlight, but 75 is a lot more efficient than 76. So what's gonna happen is 75 is gonna be drawn down by 76 because they're not isolated. It's the same problem. It's going to haunt you for the entire life of this array because you haven't done the due diligence on the electrical design.
That's correct, but it's very unlikely with panels, and if it happens that one panel degrades, like it will be replaced. And back to the point of using optimizers, it's not very practical with larger ground-mounted projects. It's very practical, of course, with our rooftop projects, with smaller projects. But with the ground-mount projects, it's not practical. We've tried it on a much smaller project, ground mount, like it was 500 kilowatt. This one is more than 2.7, 3.3 almost megawatt. So, and on the 500 kilowatt, it gave us a lot of problems. It's only, it works very effectively on smaller and residential, like all our residential projects have optimizers that bypasses any problem or any shading. I see what you said and so on.
All right.
The design, like I said, it's like the BESS unit came with the architecture and connected, and we just hooked up to it. So that design is inside the BESS units, and we're now looking into a way to separate these individual inverters. It's still like we have an independent engineer who's also reviewed this design, and this is like one of the best in the country, and they couldn't catch this problem. And we're working with them, with another independent engineer, and with the manufacturer to see how we can solve this problem, because, like you said, it will be a problem going forward. Like one string goes down, it will pull down the whole thing. But if it's a module, we understand it can be replaced, it's an easy fix, but then the downtime will be longer than usual. It's not just one module, it will be the whole string or the whole now S unit with 4 inverters with all their strings. Yeah.
Yep.
So sorry, I apologize, I don't see picture, I mean, I don't see a video here. Who's asking the question if I don't mind?
This is, oh, the video's not on. Whoops. There it is. There it is, video's on. There we are. It's Jeff Cavallo, Chairman Jeff Cavallo.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Whoops, sorry about that. All right, so gentlemen of the board, I've asked, those are my concerns. I don't know if you guys have any additional ones or you want to hear more about those, please.
My turn?
Your turn.
Number one, I'm not crazy about cutting down any trees. I think enough trees have been cut down already. Number two, if we are gonna cut down trees, which I am not in favor of, I want the stumps to be removed also. Why would you leave the stumps there and do other plantings, right? Number three, this particular solar project has been nothing but a hassle and a nightmare from day one. Obviously, there's been poor planning, poor engineering, not being upfront and forthright on many issues, including the battery storage, drainage, the dust, the noise, the aggravation to the neighborhood. Okay, and you know, we have other communities over here, like new developments, that's gonna be able to see the array also. I really don't like the fact that we're gonna cut down more trees. I really don't. But if we are gonna cut them down 1 foot above, why ain't we taking the roots out too? Is this just a cost-saving method? I don't know. But if you're gonna cut the tree down, I'd like to see the roots removed too. Why leave them there? And then you're gonna plant all these other trees, but they're not gonna have room to live if they're gonna be bound up by all the roots that are already under the ground by all these trees. I mean, there's an awful lot of trees there.
34 in that sense.
Yeah, and these poor people that live here, we got the Boiselets that are here today. I mean, these people have been, they've really had it rough since this thing went in. Noise, dust, trucks, it's just one thing after another. I mean, we have other solar farms in this town that been put in with hardly any hassle at all. I mean, one way larger than this, and they're way ahead of this on their project. And there's been a lot of problems with this company. And I'm not in favor of cutting down one tree. That's all I got.
I guess it's a good question. Why aren't you removing the stumps? What was the goal to not remove stumps?
Well, ideally, we're trying to minimize soil disturbance. So, you know, to prevent differences in runoff patterns, anything like that. Because when you're digging out stumps, it affects the soil, the grading of the site, and we were just trying to minimize that.
Yeah, that's normal. That's usually a request by conservation commissions in all towns that we work with. Not like it's more favorable if we don't de-stump the trees because it prevents disturbing the soil. And also, when we cut those large trees, it will give way to sunlight reaching the undergrowth, and it will give better chance to the trees that we're planting, and they're all native trees. And like I said, we can guarantee that we'll provide better visual screening after than before, and cutting the part of the canopy will help also with the undergrowth of flora.
I don't believe that for a second. It's my opinion.
Mr. Higgins?
Just a couple points. One is, I like the point that you made, Jeff, about the height of the trees. And I know your approach to it was sort of timeline based, but nonetheless, if more mature trees are coming down, and if we were to approve these, I would be more in favor of seeing more mature trees going back in. Not to the height of the current ones, if those are the ones that are causing problems, but definitely something more mature. The second is, although I can look at this on the map, I have not walked this property, and I do not have a good sense of what is the impact in terms of screening for what's coming down, what are the new things we're doing. And I very much want to hear what the abutters have to say about that, but personally, I would not be in favor of voting on this tonight without having an opportunity to walk that property and get a sense of what's coming down and what's being proposed to go back up.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Cooney?
No, just a lot of the same comments you guys have.
I have an issue with everything that's been happening on this project from day one. As he started by saying, your engineer started by saying, since 2018, that's 5 years on the making. And it took you until now to actually determine that this is not working for you. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think the reason why I don't believe it is that you've had all of the opportunities, and you're a businessman. You're not gonna buy something that you don't check really, really well. And so you just decided to keep on going, and now you're having a problem. You think that the town of Dayton should be giving it to you. And in my opinion, I am not giving it to anything.
Thank you, members. At this point, we'd like to open up the floor for public comment. If there's any residents who would like to speak on, please come to the microphone. Please state your name and address.
Maureen Bosley, 1680 Pine Street.
Alan Beausoleil, 1680 Pine Street.
Okay, well, there are a lot of questions, but we'll start with the trees. First of all, is there anything on the north side being disturbed at all?
Not here, no.
North side? No.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
on this side here, just to reference, this
Yes.
is the north side.
Correct.
But, no, nothing's on that side.
Okay. When I looked at the pictures that they had from the drone, they showed one little section, and yet they want to take all those trees down. If they really had the pictures from the drone, why didn't they show the whole field being blocked and the south side that they want to do, the southwest side? Because that's not the picture I see. It's only that one little section in the middle.
Got one still, yeah.
And yet all these trees want to be cut. Yes.
So that's a good question. Do we have photographs of the shading, not just on the east side, but also on the south side and the west side? Because I remember
Yes.
seeing one picture.
Yeah. Yes, sir, we do.
Can that be provided to the planning board and that we can disseminate?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we'll get more pictures.
Okay. I'm interested in the language that they're using in this letter, because it says currently. Well, to me, currently means something else can come up. So currently, no trees to be cut in a 25-foot do not touch zone. And then approximately 28 trees within 100-foot wetlands. Well, those don't seem exact to me. Just those words alone. And I see some color here. I didn't have any color on the other thing. How are you getting the equipment in to cut those trees?
Question for the applicant.
Where's the equipment going to cut those trees?
Well, there's an access road into the array, and then there are gates in the fence that would provide us to get outside the fence.
Could you
that's
show me on the
presently
map where it is that you plan on going?
there. I mean, obviously, there's an access road here.
Correct.
And right here, and then there's a fence located here, I believe there's another one on the north side right here.
That's correct.
And,
There's another one.
Is there a road on that side? I don't know if there is.
I don't think there's a road on that side.
There's a wet one there. Right.
the access, but
They'll have to take the
be
fence
through the
down.
existing access roads and the fences, the gates that are in the fences location
Where-
on the perimeter.
Where will you be dragging them trees? Will you be dragging them south or north, east, west? Which way when you cut them?
What are you doing to the trees?
Like you mentioned before, they'll be brought off-site.
Let me explain why I'm concerned. Because when they cleared that whole lot, and you were around Atlantic Engineering, right? We were promised the world. Good neighbors. Every solar company is a good neighbor, right? Absolutely wrong. Your equipment, logging truck, big, huge trailer trucks, with the loudest chipper I've ever heard, chipping logs into a trailer, right 125 feet from our house, right there. The dirt, the dust, the noise chased us out of our home.
So-
Ask someone about power washing, nothing. We've waited 3 years for planting. 3 years, nothing has been planted. We went out and spent a few $1,000s, picked them up, planted them, and paid for them.
So this is
We
the
done
concern with the, this is the concern with the abutter, so that's a good point. So when these, if these trees get removed, it's not enough to chip them on site, they gotta get removed. Like,
I mean,
This is a proposal that we.
Well, they gotta chip all the branches, all the small stuff.
Richard, picture living there all this time, clearing that whole land, right? And nobody doing anything for us. Nothing.
You say that you didn't want to take the stumps out, but yet you took the stumps out of the whole solar field. So taking stumps out of this little, this area is, all of a sudden you can't take the stumps out when you took it out of the whole field?
The trees you planted along our side were planted not properly spaced the way they should be. Some of them have died, they've been pulled out, never replaced. I mean, it's like, we're non-existent there. With your company, and I mean, we're non-existent.
I know you said you didn't visit the site, which I would recommend everybody to see the site because it makes a difference. This will be more visible. We weren't even supposed to pass this because it wasn't even visible, because it was visible from the road. This will make it more visible from the road, especially coming up Brook Street now. Because all that, if you do go on the site, all that is blocked. On our side, of course, it's all open. But especially, I know you said you were going to plant a lot of evergreens, but, that takes time. So it's definitely going to be more visible to the road. As for the buffer, what is the purpose of this buffer that you're asking for entirely around the field?
what buffer, I'm sorry?
Part of the bylaw.
The 30-foot buffer.
30-foot buffer is what's currently required by the bylaw.
Okay, from
A tree buffer,
from their fence out or from the abutter in?
from the property line
From the,
in.
okay, because we apparently had when we did it, I believe we were at a 50-foot buffer.
It's always been 30 feet.
It's all, okay, I think they agreed to 50, but, okay.
They might have made some special considerations and made it 50.
Okay,
Because of the proximity to your property, where your house is located.
But-
By the current bylaw, it's 30 feet.
it's not to clear. It's not a cleared buffer.
It's a vegetated buffer.
Okay, a vegetative.
That's the terminology, the word that's used.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay? I'm losing my voice. I'm sorry. I'm trying.
It
Okay,
appears,
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
What still isn't done, and I'm interested in why, why should they be allowed to do things that haven't been done in 5 years?
That's
5 years since, 3 years since they started building, 5 years, 2 were for COVID. On our side, some dead trees were taken away. They were never put back in. we're supposed to, Mr. Hafez, can I ask you? When are we going to get the forest enhancement done?
This is
On-
on the north side.
On the north side, and it was supposed to be on the east side. So when are we supposed to get that in? Seeing how this is our 6th planting season.
Through the chair, do I answer questions?
Sorry, yes, please, Ahmed, please address the family here.
I'm not familiar with this specific part the abutter is asking about, but are we asking about the trees, the visual screening trees on the north side, or?
Go ahead, Laura.
We're asking about the forest enhancement that's been on this plan since the beginning. 20 feet beyond, if you'd like me to point it out to you. Here are the trees that were supposedly planted, but planted further away than supposed to be, I might add. And then right here, do you see the shaded part? 20 feet of forest enhancement. Never been planted, never been done. So is this supposed to be the forest enhancement on the east side? Never been done. When should we expect that?
I'll have to look into the definition of that on the plans, and I wasn't prepared to answer this question.
It's on your plans and it says the trees would be planted there as an extra forest enhancement.
In fact,
In the wintertime, we can see right through because all the leaves are gone.
I'll have to look at the definition of that on the plan, and I can provide an answer about it.
When are we going to get the trees put back in that one of the companies you hired took out?
They removed all the dead ones. They died and they removed them. And that's it.
When are we getting them back?
They're not there. I planted 30 this
You-
May. 30 because you haven't done your job.
You want to plant all these this planting season. We've been waiting 5 years. But you're saying you can plant those this season.
Yeah, we needed an answer on that, Ahmed, because I'm seeing that on the drawings as well. And I wasn't aware that there was an additional screening that was supposed to be in that place. I didn't know.
The screening has been planted, sir, on that, to the north and to the east as well. Northeast and to the north, these trees have been planted. I realize there are some dead trees, and we'll replace them like the sooner of whether we're turning the site on or we're allowed to cut trees. And when we bring the new trees, we'll bring those together. It's not a problem. We'll replace them.
But it's not just taking the dead ones out. You took dead ones out already. They haven't been put in. There are still some dead ones there. And they're planted much further apart than they were supposed to be. So, I think we are a little tired of waiting for the forest enhancement.
The
And what
forest
about-
enhancements are supposed to be natural, planted in the woods, right? In that wooded area beyond the trees are supposed to be plantings in that wood so that it gives a ground cover and grows for some blockage. That's what the forest enhancements are. And
It doesn't appear that that's happened. Okay.
No, it does.
no, and that's not been touched.
And they took all these trees out from the east, and they have not planted these. Now, I know there's a berm issue, a basin issue, sorry, and a berm issue. But we're supposed to have those, right?
According to the-
Because you were talking about these in Exhibit B. Not those, because you took them out and you never put them back. And we never got ours. So are we getting those? Because they are on the map that was agreed to.
Everything on the plan will be done, yes.
I think we would like to see a timeline on that, Mr. or Ahmed, to understand what the plan is on the north there. And obviously, tonight we're talking about the east side, but yeah, there's still concerns there if that hasn't been taken care of.
That's why I said we're like the forgotten people. It's just like, who cares? You got dust coming in your yard, all over your house, all over your furniture, you can't breathe, can't take your grandkids out? No problem. Don't worry about it. We'll go away someday. Awful, awful, awful.
My point is, I'm going to ask you not to approve this because there's been so many things that have just come up.
They haven't kept their word.
Examples, batteries, poles, extra poles, batteries that weren't supposed to be there, panels in the berms, extra row from the original of the solar panels, trees that were not planted from the proper distance. Our gate, we were supposed to have a gate. You took it off the map. You never even told these people you took it off the map.
It's right off the plan. Not
And you
even
had
there.
them approve a plan, and you never told them you took it off.
I asked the board if you were to look at this entire project in 2018, with 97 more trees removed, with all the problems you had with the fire break for the storage containers that weren't supposed to be there, the lithium-ion battery storage containers. With all of that, with the storage containers, not enough fire break for them, more trees cut, basin problems, would you have approved that plan back in 2018?
People don't usually present plans with problems.
Because it's a ploy or a tactic.
I'm pretty sure I voted no, right?
They give,
Yes,
yeah,
you
they
did.
give you a little bit, and we're gonna be a good neighbor, small footprint, right? We're gonna be as nice as we can be, right? But then once they get in there, it's like a tactic of solar companies. We'll get this, we'll ask for that, we'll get a little more there, we'll do this, what we wanna do, we'll do it under minor modifications so that we don't have to be aware of anybody or anything. And then when they get caught, now, it's a major modification.
It's nothing but
It's very deceitful and deceptive.
It's phases of destruction. Every year, there's another phase of destruction with this company.
And it's costing us money now. And I'm not $6.5 billion rich.
And it's just my request that you don't, not until they start doing what they were supposed to do 3 to 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up too and just say that, when they're applying for these permits, they really do make it sound like they're gonna do everything and they're gonna be good neighbors and everything is laid out nice and this is the way it's gonna be.
Every time I've been called over here because of the dust, as recently as this year, when they were digging, this patch here was one of the worst ever, for like 2 or 3 days. It's the same excuse. We couldn't get a water truck.
Right.
Every single time. You can't get a water truck, then you shouldn't be able to make that mess.
The same thing happened at another site that's going on right now. And before the next solar developer comes to us, whoever that may be, God bless them.
See, I just want to say, back when I spoke before, I didn't even know about this, but this is kind of what, like, when is the town going to kind of maybe put a little squash on all this solar stuff that everybody thinks is so wonderful, which I do not, but now, like, you know what I mean? So that's what, and I know you told me I can come to that next meeting and stuff, but that's kind of what I was referring to, that maybe we ought to, like, go a little slower before we say, oh, sure, come in, make a big, thing like on Tremont Street and stuff. Yeah, let everybody come in and put in solar panels.
Believe me, this is being pushed on us by the President of the United States and the Governor of Massachusetts.
I know, I'm just.
Yeah, so the best thing we can do as a town is to protect ourselves from developers and make sure protections are put in place so that things get done correctly. And that's what we're trying to do, trying to define that as well as we can, so we can't stop the tide.
I know,
We can't stop the tide, but what we can do is at least grow into it on our terms. And that's what we're trying to do.
There's one thing that bugs me about that. I live closer to, I don't live there. I own a piece of property there's one track between me and the original one for that solar farm. I was never notified it until a friend of mine told me the permit had been approved. I live further away from the one I'm Maple Swamp Road, and I was notified about that. Go figure.
I'm not sure how that happened. Okay. All right, are there any,
I'm sorry.
yeah, hang on, what's your address, sir?
2035 Maple Street, North Dayton.
What was it?
2035.
So you were notified on, for,
Not the one for Maple Swamp Road,
yeah.
and not the one for off of Zero Brook Street.
So, the notifications for Mass General Law, people are notified anyone within 300 feet. That's how you get notified.
I'll have to check the distance, I'm not sure.
The business?
He'll have to check the distance, he's not sure.
The distance, right, so it's certified by the assessor's office. What they do is they take the property location, so for example, this property here, anyone within 300 feet of that property gets notified. That's where the determination of who gets notified on for a public hearing.
How did they rectify the lack of buffer for the batteries and stuff? If they didn't have enough room to start with, what did they do to rectify that?
The battery storage was not on the original plans. That was another
That was a major
Kind of a-
modification.
sneaky move.
I think we're getting off track here from the actual public hearing, but
Well,
just,
this is public input, right? Public
Yeah.
comment. Mr.
Could I
Yeah.
just ask one thing, which I realize I never got the answer?
Richard.
Richard, if I could ask you, I see, you're not thinking, can I just show you on the map here? When we talked about if you cut the trees, is anything happening here, going in, or anything like that?
Through the chair, I guess.
No, please.
We're not proposing any work right in this area here, no.
Okay, because if, I know you said you would be coming other ways, but are you gonna be cutting trees to get to these trees?
No, they would imagine they would basically do a roundabout area here and remove a section of fence if they have to get access over into those areas. I mean, this is a wetland area here, we
And the work,
can't just build or go through that area.
so the work zone is where? Scattered?
Yes,
But not here?
right, I mean, they'll be coming in through this area to get to this area and back here. They won't be creating a new roadway along here to get to this. They'll be doing it internal to the array.
All right, thank you. Any other public input? Sir? Mrs. Goulart?
I have a question about the plan. This green line that's shown here that I know this dark line is the road.
Mm-hmm.
This green line, is this the boundary of the actual solar farm?
The
This bright green line.
bright green line shown on the plan is the current limit of work, current limit of clearing that's out there.
Okay, so this is the limit of
That's
the
the pro-
actual solar farm, the
That's
dark
the-
line.
The dark line is the property line.
Property line,
Okay.
yes.
These trees here and these trees here, because that's part of the original layout that we had, this does not require anything from the stormwater committee.
Okay.
It's part of the original stormwater permit.
Mm-hmm.
The question I have is, and you're absolutely right, everyone should walk that property. I mean, I think some of you have seen some photographs that I've had, but you really need to see it, because when you come in here off the road, there's a giant, this is the biggest basin there is. Oh, and let me just correct something. Construction is not complete. These basins don't work. This is one here, and this one over here. They do not drain. And that's the next step. Now that the grass is grown, because we've had enough rain, the site should be stabilized. So the question is, are the basins not draining because the fabric is silted up?
Oh, they dug the whole thing out. I took a ride by there today.
Well, that's another issue.
The whole thing's dug out.
Mr. Hafez, I sent you an email and told you there was to be no construction down there without a 24-hour notice, so that the town could have somebody there to observe what was happening. We no longer have our stormwater agent, but we have contracted with a very large engineering firm that within 24 hours we could have somebody present. If there has been construction on site and this area has been disturbed, this town reserves the right to make you do it over again and have it witnessed by an engineer. I told you that in an email. There was no authorization from the town of Dayton to do anything to these basins from a stormwater perspective. I realize that's a stormwater issue, but everyone that got copied on that knows exactly what that email said. So I'm just stating it publicly. If there's basin work going on now, it should stop immediately. If there has been construction down there to take out the fabric or do a test hole or anything else,
There's no fabric, there's no nothing.
we're not going to accept it simply because there has been too much concealed in the construction of the basins by your original contractor, and there has been deceitful action taken, again, by your original contractor. This project could have been up and running, and by that I mean generating electricity 2 years ago, if in fact the basins had been constructed according to the approved plans. We all know what happened when they were dug up. I sent pictures of the boulders and the stuff that was dumped in there. But when the battery issue came up, I kept saying, get the basins working, set the battery issue aside, get up and running, generate electricity so you have income, and quite frankly, this town would start collecting tax money. The battery issue has got to go before planning. You don't have to hold up everything because of the battery issues. But the decision was made, no, we're going to have the batteries done. And then what we know is where the batteries were located was too close to the forest behind you. So the answer to that question was they bought the land to the west of this project. Grasshopper owns that privately. They bought that property so they could construct a fire break where the batteries are.
It's on, west is up there.
So, I just wanted to clarify again. I heard tonight that the statement was made, the construction's done. It is not done. At the stormwater meeting today, Mr. Aguirre said again, as basins aren't working, nothing's going anywhere. Even if everything else has been completed, if the basins don't drain, and we've got actual panels in basins, he says, I'm not gonna let this go live with panels sitting in water. Okay? So, this has been day one. The basins don't drain, you can't go live. Now, the reference to the trees that should have been planted, or the forest enhancement, or whatever you wanna call this, at a previous stormwater meeting, probably, I'm gonna guess June or July, we were talking about various bonds that are gonna be required. You have a decommissioning bond, you're probably gonna have a bond that releases the batteries. What we're going to be looking at is a basin maintenance bond. If we ever get them working properly, if they ever get them working properly so that they drain, we're going to be requesting a stormwater maintenance bond. Stormwater basins have to be maintained, no matter where they are, housing development or anything else. In this particular case, because of the problems, we're going to be asking for a bond for stormwater basin maintenance, so that if they aren't maintained, we're going to have the money to do it. The other thing is, as far as vegetation goes, trees, whatever, vegetation, Mr. Aguirre suggested back then, we should probably also request a bond for vegetation, simply because we couldn't get anything to grow, not even weeds down there. And when I say weed, I'm talking the projects in general, not the town of Dayton. But because of all the rain, and they were able to reseed, the grass has been growing. Mr. Ferry and I have been down there on several occasions just to check the grass. Because once the grass grows, then the next thing was we're going to dig up or test those basins to find out what's going on. After stormwater meeting today, Mrs. Bosley told us There's construction going on down there. There's excavation going on down there. They were told, don't do anything without 24-hour notice so that we could have an engineer go down there. I mean, there's no way the stormwater committee could say, we had a rainstorm and it rained, because we don't know what has occurred. And I did make that clear, so I'm just letting all of you know. I'm not happy with cutting all the trees as a resident of this town. From a stormwater perspective, it's not my turf. But I agree with others saying that said remain here tonight. There is just too much that has been going on, that this should be one cohesive project like other solar farms. And I don't want to brush all solar farms with the same paintbrush. Yes, the one that Mr. Woods referred to, yes, they've had dust problems. But I'll also tell you something. Biggest solar farm we've got going in town. It's actually 2 farms to the town because there's 2 property owners. They consider it one big farm. That's the project. In less than 2 weeks when they started, we shut them down for well over a month. Because when the land clearers came in, nobody told them what the significance was of all the markings, the wetland markings, the no touch, the buffer and all this. They just came in and started to build a road. And we shut them down. And I like, it was Conservation and Stormwater Committee. Major violations were conservation, so they took the lead on it. Stormwater was with them. All right? We shut them down for well over a month, and it could have been 2 months. They had to hire an engineer to draw a plan to correct the problems that had been created because they didn't tell the ground crew what the significance of all those markings were. The other thing is, they hired a wetland scientist. He's still on their payroll. He's the man that if you see me sending out weekly reports, that gentleman is the wetland scientist, okay? That solar farm has, yes, there have been the dust problems, no denying it. But I will tell you something, that solar farm is now 85% complete. That was as of the email last week. And when the gentleman came into the stormwater meeting today, it's a little more than 85% complete. That's the kind of progress every solar farm should make, in all honesty. That's the kind of cooperation every solar farm should give to the town of Dayton. I can tell you every official in this town who has somehow, in some capacity, had a connection to or had to get involved with the discussion of Brook Street, all the hours cumulative on Brook Street exceed what we spent on every other solar farm that we either have operational or is under construction. And I mean all the committees and boards that had to weigh in on these things. So, I just want you to know, it's not complete, guys.
Understood.
You've got to really look at this whole thing, but definitely, if you can go down there. The other thing I will tell you is, when you go in here and go around here, there's no way you can drive here, because there's a big basin over here, okay? This is the biggest basin, and this one is when you look in, this one sits high, you can see it at the gate over here. This one is lower, but there is a berm all along here, because when Mr. Ferry and I were down there, we entered here, and we walked this whole area, and it's not a walking trail, all right? And I was wearing construction boots and everything else. It is not a pleasant walk in the woods, all right? It's a construction site with the berm. Finally, when you get over here, this is a gravel road. Yeah, this is easy walking, because we walked, but we came this way. There's no way you can drive over to here, and quite frankly, since you can't access all these streets from here, he said that they might be removing panels to get to them. I don't know how else you can do it, because this is a drainage basin. Not as deep, and it's not as, the highest berms are not as high as this big one here. But I think it's worth considering you continue this until you actually go there and take a look. I've got tons of pictures, which I would certainly, I've shared at stormwater committee meetings and everything.
Yeah, I'd rather just go there and see it
But,
myself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially that side there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Thank you, Mrs. Mueller.
you're welcome.
Okay, so, I just want to summarize some of the concerns here. The biggest one is doing work without a 24-hour notice that needs to be adhered to. I mean, that's something that we need to be able to be prepared for, and, yeah, that needs to stop being violated. I don't know if what we do if it continues to be violated, but I would imagine there's probably some method that methods that we can take. We need more photos of the affected panels. We got the one photo with really no indication of what direction the photo was taken from. Some kind of compass rose on a photo would be fantastic. Maybe with a point on the map of where that photo was taken, so when we're looking at the photo, we know what we're looking at. Obviously, I want to do a site visit, but we're not going to see the shading conditions that you had, that you are, you know, that the whole reason you're here is for the shading situation. So knowing what the shading situations are and what they look like would be able to tell the story better. Site visit, I mentioned that. Are we allowed to just roam on the site? It's a construction site. Generally, you don't walk on a construction site. What's the guidance for going
So you've got to be
there?
properly attired, you should have sturdy footwear,
Yeah,
you should
I'm
have.
talking about access.
All right, well, Tom Ferry,
Yep,
or the fire chief, but I'd go with Tom Ferry, because he may even do the site walk with you.
all right.
You should be wearing, the bright colored vest, whatever color, and he may have those for you too.
Okay.
But you need sturdy footwear, and if it's been raining, you're gonna need something that's kind of waterproof,
Yeah.
because it gets mucky down there,
Muck boots. Okay,
okay?
thank you. So I'll reach out to Mr. Ferry. Forest enhancement was a big item. We want more information on what the issue is. Like I didn't pick that out on the plan. If that was something that was discussed, we need to get more information on that. A missing gate. I heard a statement about a missing gate. I'd love to know more about that. I mean, the applicant needs to provide information. When did that go away? And who authorized it? Those are mine. I mean, I'm all about continuing this because, you know, you're on the agenda with the Conservation Commission. Email from Lisa. Chairman Carvalho has required Brook Street Solar filed with us for another amended order of conditions and is scheduled to be before the Conservation Commission on 21st of September. Conservation Commission does not have to allow the additional changes and amendments, and if they decide to consider this, there is a high likelihood that this will go out for peer review. So, you know, anticipate this is going to take a while, because if she goes to peer review, I'm not sure what the timeline's going to be based on the effect, but, I mean, that's with the Conservation Commission. And then Jim Aguirre did provide input. He said Brook Street Solar is still working through compliance concerns with multiple departments. I am not allowing grid interconnection until these problems have been resolved, and you've heard my concerns ad nauseum.
Someone on the floor.
Sir?
Yes, Kai, Whaling City Solar. As a solar professional, if I come across proposals that are overly aggressive due to very fluffy shade, my solution is to update the shade and not to remove the trees. I've been doing solar for 10 years.
Could you say that again? I didn't hear you.
What does that mean by update the shade?
As in create an accurate shade report, right?
Okay.
And then so that you're modeling the actual production of the system accurately for the system, right? And if you have a salesperson who might fluff that shade number down so that the system produces better and makes more money, where I'm kind of, as someone who's not intimately familiar with this project or the whole history involves, just the idea of the request today to cut trees to increase performance does not seem like a pertinent request to Dayton. It seems more of an engineering, a problem for them to solve for engineering.
Thank you. All right. So at this time, there's no further public input. Members of the board, are there any further questions or clarifications from the applicant?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for Grasshopper Energy until, when, Karen?
October 4th, we have, our public hearings for our solar and our bylaws.
Can
I
we
don't
do
know if
next
you
meeting?
wanna do it that night, or if you wanna do it the following, it's up to you.
Do we have a second meeting in October?
Yes, we are back to normal schedule.
Okay, so it's not the 4th, it is the
Oh, hold on, it will be, wait a minute, my computer went to sleep. October
It's the 4th, it's the 18th.
18th.
Okay, a motion to continue the public hearing for Grasshopper Energy until October the 18th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion before we take it to vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and I guess I want to say, you know, that's been continued, we're not going to close it, but these concerns that I brought up, we'd like to be prepared to address those when you guys come back, please.
Definitely, yeah.
Thank you.
If you could let us know when the site visit's gonna happen, I guess.
Okay, we'll talk to Mrs. Easterday and figure out when we can line that up.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, meeting minutes from August 16th, 2023.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes approved. Mrs. Easterday, is there any additional correspondence?
I do.
Yes!
I know. So we received correspondence from the Department of Environmental Protection, wanting to announce the attention fleet owners, business, government agencies, municipalities, brokers, etc. This is a regulatory requirement of Mass DEP that requires your attention. Follow the instructions below to determine if you must submit a report by March 1st. To whom it may concern, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, Mass DEP, adopted a new regulation, 310 CMR 7.41, large entity reporting requirement that became effective on September 1st, 2023, which requires large entities, fleet owners, businesses, government agencies, municipalities, brokers, etc., to submit a one-time report on medium and heavy-duty vehicles greater than 8,500 pounds operated or dispatched in Massachusetts. Specific information that must be reported includes vehicle type and usage characteristics. This report will help Mass DEP assess the best way to develop electric vehicle charging infrastructure and programs to support and accelerate the MHD zero-emission vehicle market in Massachusetts. Entities must submit the report to Mass DEP through Massachusetts Large Entity Reporting Portal by Friday, March 1st, 2024. Please follow the instructions below to determine whether your entity is subject to the requirement, and if so, to submit your report. You go to their website, click reporting form, and I think we need to go through all that.
Are we subject to that requirement?
The planning board is not, because we don't have anything. But I'm sure probably the highway department will, so I'll make sure he gets a copy of that.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Jen, that was sent to, I think, everybody and their grandmother, because when I got it, I forwarded it to Tom Ferry, but also to Mike Mullen, because the entity reporting is going to be the town, right?
Okay, it's the entire town. Got it. Okay, anything else, Mrs. Easterday?
Yes, we also received, finally, the judgment, of an appeal that was from, a retreat lot on William Street with Roderick and the planning board. So I will just briefly read the judgment of Tony Roderick. On July 7th, he filed a plaintiff's motion for a summary judgment on his appeal of the board's decision, for the denial of his retreat lot on, and forgive me, I'm summarizing so I don't have to go through 17 pages. Forgive me.
Legalese.
Like you, I'll be losing my voice. So the summary judgment motion came on to be heard on August 25th, 2022 in a memorandum of order of even date. The court, Foster J., has denied the summary judgment motion and rendered summary judgment against Mr. Roderick pursuant to Mass R. Civ. E. 56. In accordance with the court's memorandum in order to issue today, it is ordered, adjudged, and declared that the decision is affirmed. It is further ordered and adjudged that the complaint is dismissed with prejudice. So therefore, the matter is now closed.
Thank you.
And that is all I have.
All right. I do like in the judgment where they called our retreat lot elegant.
It is elegant.
As opposed to being called a pork chop lot.
Chop lot.
Much more elegant, as we call
Yeah.
it. It was elegant, it was lifted right from the judgment, like, this is fantastic, it's official, it's
As we
legal,
so eloquently labeled it.
eloquently labeled. Wonderful. Anything further?
That is it.
Okay. Afraid to ask, is there any more public input? Further on the phone, all right, excellent, quick, next item, quick.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn and say goodnight to my granddaughter. She asked me to do that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, thank you.